Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Peace of Mind. I'm Dharma Peace.
And I'm Dharma Sky.
All right, guys, welcome to the channel. In this episode, we'll be discussing the Avatar series. And we're going to begin first by reacting to the trailer for Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. And then after that, we're going to segue into discussing Netflix Avatar. There's a lot of controversy about that, and we're going to give our 2 cents about that, breaking it down from
Yeah.
season 1 this episode. Then maybe next time we'll talk about
And
season 2, right?
mhm,
Right, Sky?
yeah. And I haven't seen this trailer actually, so I'm excited to see this.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to watch that. I'm trying to bend my way into that video right now and see what happens. I haven't checked
let's
it out,
see.
so I'm watching it with you guys, Hanga.
All right, guys, let's jump right into it then.
One of the greatest shows of all time.
One of the greatest shows of
I'm
all
the
time.
Last Airbender.
You got Paramount Plus. Check it out. If you don't, go get it.
What did you think about
Well,
that?
That is incredible. Sangha, I don't know how you guys feel, but I love the visuals. I love how they did the kingdoms. I love the color of the features in the faces and everything. I love the emotions, everything. It looks like a good movie. I don't know who the big guy is. If anybody knows, just say it down there. But it looks like an enjoyable watch.
Well, one thing I know is that Avatar fans are very encyclopedic about their knowledge, and so when you like look into these trailers and you go through the threads, you're gonna find a lot of spoilers and a lot. In fact, this whole movie's been spoiled. I don't know if you knew that, Sky, but apparently it got leaked and there was a huge controversy about it, and I just shook my head SMH the whole time, just like. So Paramount decided to launch it on stream instead of put it in theaters. And then that became a controversy where everyone was like spamming Paramount with like, this should be in theaters. And I agree with them. Paramount had planned on, or there was some plan apparently to launch it in theaters sometime in October. But now they're launching it now, and they're just trying to hurry up and get it released so that they can make some kind of money off of it. Because apparently there's something called the Avatar, or the Avatar Studios curse, where basically a lot of the production and a lot of what's going on gets leaked, or people just can't contain themselves, so they just like spread around all this information. Like, I understand the enthusiasm of the show. I think a lot of people kind of grew up with it, and so naturally I find that when you have an attachment to things like this, like you're a fan of something, you kind of emotionally regress back to your age when you adopted it. When, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Psychologically,
You was
that's
gonna
what's
compare
happening.
it to how you saw it back then and how you felt about it back then, and it's
Yeah.
inevitable. We all do this. We all guilty of doing this.
So yeah, so I know that like the creators and Avatar Studios appreciate the fans and understand the enthusiasm, and a lot of people are very emotionally attached to it, or have a connection to it that goes beyond just fandom per se. But at the same time, yeah, this causes some kerfuffles here and there, you know. But anyway, going back to the trailer and reacting to it based on its merits and not based on the surrounding controversy. Personally, I was very impressed. I like I've seen the adult version of Team Avatar during the Korra series, but I really did want to see them actually live out their lives in real time. Because in the flashbacks of the Korra scenes, they were very brief, and it was just like, oh, come on, I want to just see, like, I just want more than a snippet of their lives. I want to see like
You
an
want to
episode.
dive into their everyday.
Yeah, so this film kind of does that, you know. So, what do you think? Like, what are the aspects that jumped out to you the most, Sky?
From the trailer?
Yeah,
From the trailer, yeah, I could see how their bond deepen, how they're more comfortable with their bending. The confidence. If you ever watched the cartoons and the series, we all know that wasn't always the case. They struggle with acceptance, and they didn't believe in themselves, and sometimes there was a lot of division. So, and we see that through the cartoons, through the shows, from the humble beginnings to the tough decisions to the battles. We can see them come together. So how they came up together and then grown together and became one. So I love that.
beautiful. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and for me, what struck out was the setting and harkening back to old times, because I could tell that some of the structures and some of the settings were, first there was like the modern area, like the modern location of where they're all living, and then there's this like large temple and structure that looks ancient, and there's no doubt a connection between this new character and ancient times. So it looks like this like sort of mysterious trope about exploring some forbidden temple and maybe traveling time or something to that effect. So that's kind of the impression that I had, and lately that's actually been on my mind a lot, is exploring ancient civilizations, exploring alternative pathways toward civilization in general. Because recently I've been thinking that the way civilization is going right now is not exactly productive and conducive to our well-being. And throughout time, we research other civilizations and we see when others flourished, and that the fact that other established nations have flourished in times of peace, and they were very organized and they prospered. So I'm pushing back on that narrative, as being Dharma peace. I push back on the narrative that somehow societies need to establish honor and justice based on coercive force, which is a topic that I talk about a lot in my book. And it's something that I think we need to expunge, and it's something that I think that Avatar: Last Airbender and the franchise actually does very well. It explicates this and shows almost like case studies of this kind of thought experiment throughout the series. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree, absolutely. One thing that I could identify with the show is talks about healing,
Mm.
healing within yourself to become a better person. I believe a lot of us who practice Buddhism or any type of spirituality have gone through this. We've gone through our dark phases, to times that we don't believe in ourselves, that we look down on ourselves, and then we have pain. Pain is a big topic on this series, pain and suffering. And if you look in a superficial level, you see all this pain and then the fight and the fight. It's so much deeper. It's about the healing of each character. You had Sokka that he couldn't bend, he couldn't do nothing, but he becomes a great leader. He's there for his friends. You can see in different episodes. You see Zuko, who was pretty much neglected in a way by his family. He felt like no one loved him like he loved. You can see from his beginnings, he was very compassionate, that he didn't want to be a warrior. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to do all this stuff that comes from anger. But because of his situation, his circumstances, he become angry. But then as each of these characters, they go on their journey, they heal. And not only they heal looking within, they heal with each other. They become a community. They come together and they help each other see their strengths and become a team. So that's a beautiful thing. And you'll see that a lot. You see that a lot of topics about transforming, that coming out of the lotus, coming out of the mud, becoming the lotus. It talks about impermanence. It talks about acceptance. It talks about skillful action in the right direction. So there's a lot of things that you could take from this experience. So and I identify with all these characters because sometimes I've been in those moments where I'm in pain and I just want to either lash out or hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how do I look within and keep going? And the episode with the Spirited Away, where he becomes one to sacrifice, because I think they attacked the moon or something like that. They couldn't have the moon or something, and then he became part of it, and then he sacrificed himself for the better, when he could not do that. That's definitely the Bodhisattva way, which is like you hold yourself back for the better being of everybody. So.
Yeah, sorry. A few takeaways there. One was you mentioned lotus out of the mud again, which, what color is that lotus? A white lotus, maybe? Like a pie show tile?
Maybe.
Well, it could be any color really, but whatever color you happen to be. But I was just giving a nod to the White Lotus that Uncle Iroh is part of a few of the sort of supporting members who are also masters in their own right, are part of the White Lotus, and that's treated like a secret society. And it kind of relates to peace of mind. We kind of operate in that same sort of way. What you see here is just kind of our our public persona, but there are collectives like ours that also try to promote peace and prosperity, in ways in our lives. So, but anyway, going back to some of your other points, because now we are actually talking about the Netflix series, and that Spirited Away episode, I have to agree, is an exploration on the Bodhisattva path. And I have some notes of my own where I wanted to share, but I kind of want to, and I do agree with what you're saying, Sky, but I had something, I wanted to kind of start off a little bit by discussing how Netflix decided to start season 1, and the reason is because it relates directly to Buddhist history. And so, we're a collective of engaged Buddhists, and I hope that our audience can go ahead and follow along, because I feel like Avatar: Last Airbender is a great sort of gateway into exploring these topics, and there's a lot of themes in there that are intertwined and entangled with our actual history and our actual legacy as engaged Buddhists. So, episode 1, titled Aang, it starts at the Southern Air Temple, and it starts with Aang's relationship with Monk Gyatso. Uh, Monk Gyatso is named actually after Tenzin Gyatso, who is the current Dalai Lama, right? So it is not a coincidence that he is target of an assault, right? So in the 1950s, China had sieged Tibet and basically laid claim to Tibet as part of China. So Tibet and China have always had this historical connection, and they've always been intertwined. But Maoists and people who supported the Communist Party at the time basically besieged Tibet and established it as an extension of their, communist regime, and started to. So thus began the Tibetan diaspora, where Tibetans had to leave their homeland, and the southern air temple and everything. It resembles what Lhasa and actual Tibetan homeland looks like. So all of that was very, very intentional, right? So the creators really drew inspiration from the actual Tibetan diaspora. They drew inspiration from kung fu movies, and that's also a theme in kung fu movies where, some of them like Fist of Legend, yeah, like Bruce Lee, how he started with that, and then like Jet Li came in with his rendition, and you had like the Japanese invasion of China, which started out as a sort of cohabitation or something of some kind of deal with China. I do respect the way that the weight of how they showed the genocide of the air nomads, and they didn't mince words with it. They just straight up showed it like it is and how it really happens in the real world. Because yeah, we tend to think, oh, Avatar: Last Airbender it started off as a child show and a children's show, and it's just a light themed topic, but in actuality, they're touching on
Not
some
at all.
very grown up issues. And I think that now more than ever, we need to talk about these things because I feel like there's so much confusion about these issues and how to discuss them. And I think that these types of programs make it so that we can actually discuss it in a way that isn't just depressing and as you were talking about earlier, they're actually showing us how to be more confident and more skillful in our approach to dealing with these issues, right? So these are children, and they actually wind up being the change they need to see in the world. They had to go through the almost like hermetic process, or even like the 36 chambers of kung fu or Shaolin, in order
Yeah,
to
yeah, basically.
in order to basically, because it starts off with the Avatar and like how he has to master all the elements, and then it turns into, well, Team Avatar have to be masters in their
Team
own
effort.
right of everything, yeah, of what they need to accomplish, and
Yeah,
the
we all
elements,
connected. We can't do nothing
yeah,
by ourselves. So
yeah, exactly, and the elements of so the elements explored in Avatar: Last Airbender. If you ever study like Taoism, or in Japan you have Onmyodo, you'll find that like, or even like in Pokemon, the elements that are focused are not the same as an Avatar all the time. So in the Bagua, or in like the 8 trigrams or in all that stuff, those are not always the same elements. But what I wanted to bring attention to is that in Buddhism they actually are. So in the Datu Vibhanga Sutta, the Buddha actually explains that there are the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and then there are also space and consciousness. And these are explored as well in the series. I think they just refer to them as like the cosmic elements, and then there's the spiritual realm, right? Where the Avatar has to master that as well. Yeah. So then you have like that um, throwback to which, you know, if I may, one of my critiques of the Netflix Avatar series is that the animated series has the Guru Patik. And it teaches Avatar Aang about the chakras, right? But then in this one, no such guru is there, or at least not yet that we've seen.
yeah, I was
And
gonna say I didn't saw that on the series.
yeah, yeah,
There
but
was
that's
no the guru and all, and I was waiting for that too, and it never happened.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so and I'm a little bit spoiling. I'm getting into spoilery territory because I don't know if you've seen season 2 yet, but I'll just disclose now that he's not in either episode or in either season, which was kind of a disappointment to me. And and before we get more, I do kind of want to like sandwich this a little bit in as well, that I think that some of the aspects of the Netflix series need a little bit of criticism, and I think that, and it's not what other people are saying. It's not like you're run of the mill like, well, they didn't do the episodes in the right sequence, or they didn't. It's like that. I appreciate the way Netflix is telling the story, as I have praised episode 1, how it just didn't mince words or didn't mince any of the visuals It's hard to teach this type of topic to young people, but I think they do need to learn because it sets a foundation for compassion and for like understanding these hard issues. And to kind of like hearken to one of my predecessors, Betty Reardon, who was a trailblazer in peace studies. She said that children can learn the language of peacemaking, like right, as they're learning about the world. For some reason, we kind of put that on like a pedestal or on like, well, that's too complicated or too complex for them. But no, actually, in education, we can elevate understanding just by starting with that kind of vocabulary. And then as they grow, they learn more and more about how that language actually is applied in the real world. So maybe they know the word and they don't always know the full context. But as you get older, you get more comfortable with that terminology and you start to learn more about what it actually entails and the deeper dives into it. And but the thing is that we need to give students the agency to, or I'm saying students, sorry, I'm talking like a teacher. We need to give audiences and children and adults and everyone the agency to explore these topics. But you can't do that if you're not prepared. If you don't have, as they say in Netflix, you don't have, or sorry, in Avatar, as they're saying, if you don't have the mastery, if you don't have the background, like if you can have like a talent, and a lot of people confuse that with like I have this innate talent, right? But talent is not applicable to actually changing the world, as we know. It's not like one could be peaceful, but like you say, Sky, if you're not able to present that to the world, if you're not able to give that to others, then it is essentially meaningless. Yeah.
Peace is not for us. We gotta find a way to not say that we're peaceful, just to find peace within, and that's it. Like we gotta peace. We gotta spread that peace. We gotta show it how to be peace. Is the way how we do skillful words, use the words, manner, everything.
Yes, indeed. And I think that so the Netflix show, it seems that they understand and they grasp the big issues, but it seems like it carries over some of the television tropes that you see in other shows, right? Like that you see like film, like Marvel film, or you see it in like medieval drama. I'm not gonna name what I'm thinking of right now because
I already know.
Yeah. I don't think I even need to say it. Audience, I think you know what I'm talking about because it was a cultural phenomenon, and I think that all of the deep, dark, sort of Machiavellian role play in those programs and how these wars last 100 years or they last some time before some cataclysm happens. That kind of stuff is derivative writing right now, and it's just a kind of like the way that writing is being seen mapped throughout every series now is very formulaic, and that needs to sort of change, I think. And it also is not very educational. It doesn't really teach anyone how to make society right. The main reason that these behaviors and these sorts of ways of thinking are shown in film is to show why they are evil, not to show why they're desirable and why we should behave like them. Nobody should want to behave like a Machiavellian, like someone who's always plotting and scheming. All right, that is not that is not a very well. Let's put it this way: it doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't make you skilled either. So again, all the people or all the plot lines that you follow showing that these sorts of behaviors and these worldviews always lead to something destructive or corrosive or corrupting. So in Avatar: Last Airbender, both the Netflix and in the animated series, especially the animated series, put that on the forefront. And I have a lot to say about that, Sky, but I think you have a lot to share as well about that, as far as the introspective nature of it and how the character study of each character relates to the why, to virtuous living, to peaceful living, but also to more wholesome and fuller living. Because I think that's what people really should be focused on, is like everyone's focused on a goal and they think like this is going to bring me happiness, and when I achieve that goal, I'm going to be happy in that future version of me. But
but what happens once you reach that goal?
Yeah. It's like
the thing, right?
Well, what now?
You're constantly chasing the next thing. A lot of those elements that you mentioned about other shows about the negativity and that do you of course you see that in Avatar. You see the fights and the war and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you see characters just like Iroh, or you a part of war and everything else. But it's not just focused on that. It's focused how to transform from something negative to something positive. Iroh become So like a guru in itself for Suko and his journey, trying to open him up to be more compassionate, more loving, to accept him as his uncle, and to stop running away from his pain by being more aggressive, but taking that pain in a good way, accepting the pain, acknowledging the pain, and how can I transform that into a skillful manner. Katava, she lost her mom, loss, that's very painful. We all go through loss. And she struggles with her water bending. And then she meets other people, and they tell her, hey, sometimes you gotta take that, again, same message, you gotta take that pain within in a skillful manner, like see it, accept it, not run away from it. And you see, that's how she accepts it. She realizes it's a part of her.
Yeah.
But just because it's a part of her, it doesn't have to be her. She doesn't have to be that pain. And she starts water bending, and then she starts healing other people as she goes away. And then she becomes a master. She mastered the bending, but that bending is not just the bending. She mastered her emotions. She mastered the pain that came from those circumstances. And this is what's the great thing about Avatar. Like, you see a lot of fighting and stuff, but it's about growth. It's about healing. It's about coming together. Like, even though all of this war and division is going on, we can come together by just accepting, okay, this is not good. This is kind of sucky. But how can we heal together and become our own Avatar team and spread and bend that peace, bend that positivity to everybody. So that's an important thing. So
yeah.
Yes, it got elements of war and this and that, but it's more about the deeper message about healing, going through the journey, and accepting the pain. And that's the only way you can create the pain. So.
All the growth and all of the redemption in the story happens in spite of the war, not because of the war. So like the war is there as a kind of backdrop and mud for the lotus to grow, but if we just focus on the mud, then we don't see the lotus, right? We just see the mud. And when we focus on the lotus, the mud just becomes the kind of the environment for which the lotus grows. So it's like that. And now this whole narrative structure, it almost seems like there needs to be a conflict. Like when I was younger, I would think a lot about conflict and how it makes people stronger. It's almost like you get into like the Nietzschean side of things, where it's like, well, without the will to power, then you don't get any growth and you don't get any sort of progression. And I find that is a very seductive and corrupting way to think. And I find that, and I'm surprised at how many very intelligent people get sucked into this kind of worldview. And I really mean it as like it's a very strong delusion that is very much the same as like what the Third Reich and the the Nazis sort of envisioned. And that also includes like Imperial Japan. It also includes Communist China and all these authoritarian regimes. But I think that even so now in our so-called democracies, which is not really, it doesn't really mean anything anymore, because democracy is kind of becoming corroded by corporate interest and by global economics, as opposed. So we're not really seeing democracy play out right now. And I think that at this moment, I feel like, and even if you were voicing yourself and your concerns, I think you're wasting your time and effort. So I think that, so I know I'm right now I'm being very sharp and sort of blunt, but I don't know how you can be sharp and blunt at the same time. But what I mean is I'm saying these things very bluntly, but it's sort of to get to a deeper wisdom later. But what I'm trying to say is that at this moment, I think that people will focus on the violence, or they'll focus on the sort of, well, might makes right aspect of the show, where the Avatar is actually, in fact, a powerful being, and is in fact, he in some way triumphs over evil with force, right? So he's using kung fu, and you'll see like all the bending, or you'll see the tai chi or the qigong, but those are expressions of not of domination. So if you learn what they're actually doing physically with their bodies and what they're doing as the mind-body connection, like you learn about in Zen, or you learn about just in general in Buddhism, you'll understand that what they are doing is actually connected to meditative practice and not connected to dominating and crushing and aversion, right? It's actually a totally different. Exactly. Well, the Avatar state is kind of like people are struck by in awe of the Avatar state, and that could be like a whole other episode where I can debate, like, there are certain aspects of it that I like and certain aspects that I don't like. But you, like, even in the animated series, you'll like, there's that moment that Roku trumps Sozin. Sorry, yeah, I'm trying to think of Fire Lord Sozin, where he trumps him in his own castle, and destroys that whole wing of his castle. And he says, if you try this again, it will result in your permanent end. Well, guess what? That backfires, right? So that moment where he tries to scare Sozin with the Avatar state, with Force, it backfires. We see, so there's a lot of wisdom here in the show where Roku couldn't actually bring balance with Force. That was where he made his mistake. So in the next lifetime, as a Bodhisattva, he has to be reborn as Aang. And Aang, it actually surpasses Roku in wisdom in this way, through expressing how this sort of thing needs to be encircled within nonviolence. It has to come full circle all the time. You can't just force the way of the world to, like, you can't outforce force. You know, so you can't be like, I'm going to coerce coercion. You know, and it's such a tempting thought to think, you know, it's such a tempting, like, reaction, but that's all it is a reaction. And reactions aren't proaction. Like, proaction is what we're seeing with the mastery of the elements, with the mastery of kung fu, the mastery of friends, like making friends, the mastery of, that's all kung fu, right? Kung fu is the mastery of something. It's the mastery of your writing, your speech, your, how you travel, how you make connections. You know, it's all. Yeah, no. I'm gonna stop
You can
talking.
see the Eightfold Path in a lot of instances in the series, like you said, when they travel, everything, like rightful speech, you know, everything, concentration, everything. You can see all those things on the show.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. But we were talking about war, like, so I think it's a good segue into episode 2, which is called Warriors, right? And we learn about the Kyoshi Island, right? Kyoshi Warriors. And people critiqued the Netflix version because Sokka wasn't sexist. But actually, he kind of still is, you know. I'm sorry, Sky, I don't know if you follow the fandom that much, but there's a critique.
Why
do
they want him to be sexist?
So that he can grow out of it. So it makes a lot of sense that, so that, like, they can disabuse people of the sexist sort of mindset.
Got you. They can show how you can come out of it. Okay.
Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, the Netflix series is actually tackling different interrelational issues from a different angle. So it's not, I don't think it's fair to always judge it based on the animated series. In fact, I think it's a little bit, dare I say, immature. But we're constantly, as Buddhists, we're dealing with ignorance and all of its forms. So immaturity is one. Others would be like separation, the separation of self and other, but also another would be an experience, or, you know, so there are various ways to look at this. And I understand the critique, I understand people's perspective, but I don't think it's fair to judge the Netflix series just because it diverged from, you know, a different narrative structure. And I think that because if it has all the same elements, like the 4 elements, but if it has all the same story elements, then and it's still approaching interrelational issues, and it's still solving those issues, then I think that it's still accomplishing the same goal. And I think that people confuse, you know, like, we have the animated show, and now we have the live show, and they're both challenging interrelational issues. So I think that the way that the Netflix series does it is just different. And I like that there's this other YouTuber, I don't remember what his name was, but I was very interested in the way that he said it, was like, is it bad or is it just different? And he said, you know, he basically talked about the Netflix series and how, you know, he said that he basically ranked every episode based on that, whether it's just bad or whether it's just different. And because you would think that the way that everybody attacks this show, that it was somehow a bad show, and it's not. It just has a lot that could improve, and I think that people are focused on the wrong things. I think so. Essentially, associating justice with power, right? That's one that often is just wrong, because real justice, in situations of true justice, like in the case of, you know, John Rawls or other justice theorists, I would say that most would agree, especially in peace studies, but also, you know, John Rawls, other like political science-y type of people, would agree that true justice is found when power is disseminated, when power is shared by the vox populi, by the voice of the people, and not by consolidated power. When power is consolidated to like one person, or into an oligarchy, or into like systemic power structures, and then people aren't able to. They don't have agency. They're not able to act in a way that they see fit, in a way that they see is just. So that troubles this notion of justice. So then you get into these other theories of justice, or in these other expressions that I like in fantasy or in literature. You know, in D&D we have like the alignment structure, where you have like
Yeah.
yeah, like you have like the chaotic and neutral and evil and good. So then so it becomes a grid of all these different aspects of whether you are good or virtuous, or whether you are lawful, whether you are evil, or whether you are chaotic. So there's like people who are called like lawful evil or lawful good, and
Yeah.
how they view justice is kind of horseshoed around, because like when you so in this alignment sort of thing, I always become chaotic good. Because the way that lawful good is understood is that you can't ever step out of line from the rules. The rules are everything. The laws are everything. But true justice understands that laws and rules need to be updated. They need to follow with actual human organization and human behavior and interactions, and so our sense of reality and our sense of truth and our sense of balance is constantly changing based on our what knowledge that we've attained in our interactions with other cultures and with other challenges in the world. So again, that goes back to the growth and fixed mindset, right?
Yep.
So
There you talked about, yeah.
yeah, we discussed that before. So but yeah, that I think that this series it is actually exploring that more than people realize. It's exploring the dichotomy between growth and fixed mindset a lot, where there's traditions everywhere. Like the Kyoshi warriors, they have their traditions, that they're all female, and that they're all or something to that effect, Or Sokka, who's
And
the
you see
water
that a lot
tribe.
of the
Yeah,
royalty, the people in power, the people that are higher us, those are the ones that you see that have the fixed mindset. And the ones that have been through difficult situations, those are the ones that actually. So.
yeah. And figures such as Tomoe Gozen in Japan and Qin Lianggu of Ming China, those were like women, right, who were very influential in their time. And so the Kyoshi warriors and Avatar Kyoshi sort of echo those sort of cultural like the I'm trying to remember, like there's Onabugeisha, or there's a kind of woman warrior class. I'm trying to remember what it is in Japan, but something like of that effect, where it's just like women samurai, or that I think history forgets, or that people just tend to associate like all these so-called warrior cultures with men, and actually women have played a large role as well in history in certain areas where they turned the gender tide, where they actually participated. Now we can debate whether that is good or not, like whether so they challenged essentialism as far as warrior culture, but like in feminist theory, that would also just be an extension of patriarchy in a way. So anyway, it's just not to get too much into the weeds there, but I would say that in this case, like in the case of in the same way that the Shaolin monks defended their temple and defended the sutras from basically xenophobia in China, because in China it was seen as a foreign belief system, Buddhism, and same with Japan. There were periods of time where monks had to defend the sutras, so that and their own lives to an extent, because they were being pogromized, they were being hunted down, temples were being burned down, and you see this throughout history. Again, that's why Avatar: Last Airbender is so relevant. Because we talked about the Tibetan diaspora, but also throughout like medieval history and ancient history, Buddhism people have tried to snuff it out in Asia, and all it did was grow after. So, there were the pogroms in China, and there was a famous faction called the White Lotus actually in China where they protected people's agency from despotic kings, and I believe it was in central China. And so Shaolin, but also like the Sohei in Japan, there's in Japan, we have Jodoshu and Jodo Shinshu. Both at one point were sort of persecuted. They're both forms of Pure Land Buddhism, where they speak of the Nimbutsu, which is Namu Amida Butsu, right? That's their sort of prayer and their chief practice. And they were discriminated. Again, the Sohei took up arms and protected themselves on the top of the mountains. So whether that is good or not, I don't know, because I think that I'm gonna be honest with you. Oda Nobunaga burned down the main temple of Jodo Shinshu, which is Ishiyama Honganji in Osaka. It now stands the Osaka castle above the ruins. So I think that they're sort of, again, like with Avatar Roku, I think that their use of force kind of backfired on them. So uh, I think that has the karma playing out there. Anyway, but that's my own opinion. um, yeah. So again, we talked before, Sky, about like the Zen way of, what was it, the Zen state of mind. Yeah, we termed it as the Zen state of mind. Zen state of mind, and like
Yeah.
how we have like this Zen warrior sort of disposition. But Sky, wouldn't you say that that's more about, it's less about fighting and more about just going through samsara and living life uh, without being affected or being a victim of abuse, right? It's more along those lines,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Um, I guess. Well, you're always going to be affected in a way,
Mhm.
especially at first. We're human. I think it's what choice do we do when we do get affected? How do we transform that?
Yeah.
How we take it all in? How we move forward? I
Mm.
think it's important. We got that state of mind to kind of just focus on the feeling, on the lesson. What is this teaching me? And be confident with yourself, like having an avatar, believe in yourself.
Mhm.
Have that growth mindset. That growth mindset begins with the beginner's mind. You're gonna see that with Aang. Aang, he mastered all the elements. He, he he recognized that he didn't know how to do everything else, and he looked for the help. He did what he had to do. He opened his heart to connections, and once he knew who he was, no one could mess with him.
Yeah.
He was like people would say unbothered and became more Zen-like.
Right, and that's a very good point, and I think you're kind of like, we're like sharing the same sort of wavelengths right now, because I was thinking about Aang and his disposition a lot, and now this is where kind of like the Netflix series, in my opinion, falls a little short, and it's mainly from Aang's behavior, because in the animated series he's more composed. Understandably, he acts like he is a child, so sometimes he is upset, but the Netflix series, he's kind of like upset all the time. And I'm sorry, that's a little bit, it's a little extra. Netflix,
Yeah, I mean,
Netflix
yeah,
Aang
it's normal
is,
to be upset
yeah,
because even though he's 100 years old, he's still a kid.
yeah,
So it's okay to have certain emotions, but it seems like he gets stuck in that pain, which is not very skillful because that's the whole point of the show. It's like, okay, you're mad, you're going through pain, but once you transform, not being stuck in that pain. So yes, I do see that point of view that you
yeah,
bring it up, but there's a lot of good moments in the show where he showed compassion, with his friend
right.
that his friend grew old,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then yeah, and a lot of moments where he had to meet people with tough. There's a lot of times that he had to be a little more compassionate, and so yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I enjoyed it, and I see your point, but yeah.
yeah. I'm not saying that he. Well, my main, it's he's very compassionate. He's very loving. He has love. He embodies loving kindness, and that includes the Netflix show. But my main critique is that he's not embodying equanimity, which is more what he needs, right? And that, so through the animated series, he struggle, like it's showing him literally struggle with staying equanimous and staying balanced, but he tries every time. Like every time he's presented with an issue. But in the Netflix series, it's almost like he carries over the same complaints and same, like he bottled up a lot of irritation, even against his own company, his own party, Team Avatar. And so that is not equanimous, right? Like we, as Buddhists, we have to process something that upsets us, and like, well, we're expected to, as a part of our practice. We, when something upsets us, we have to leave it in the past, and just let it be. Like it was like, okay, that happened. It will not happen tomorrow, or at least we'll hope not. But if it does, that's
May
tomorrow's,
happen, but we don't.
it's tomorrow's
That's
problem.
some more problems.
Yeah, but because we continually reset the sort of equanimity scale as best as we can. But sometimes stuff does weigh over, and it carries over to the next day or whatever. But the idea that, what I'm trying to just say is that um, Netflix Aang is less equanimous. Maybe he's somewhat wise in other ways, but in this way he's very ignorant. I'm sorry to say. He's showing his irritation way too often, and I think that's something that not just him but everybody needs to improve on. What are your thoughts on that one, Sky?
Yeah, I mean, there's a powerful quote on the episode that I took down.
Yeah.
That says, "That's the price of freedom. When it comes to accepting that pain and turn it into a lesson. That's the moment when he was talking to Katara. The only thing difference is that he used it for a little bit of wrongdoing in a way. As you see the series, you'll know what I'm talking about. He'll take that, even though he gave it that speech, he took that pain, even though he recognizes in his mind, skillful mind, but he didn't put it into action. But that's a question that's a quote that we should all think. What is the price of freedom? Like, how is the price? And I think it's that piece of finding that peace within you, and what do you do that for the world? And that's the price.
Yeah, I agree. Sadi, thank you. And I also wanted to add that a lot of this is mirrored in our history again. And that's why I appreciate this show so much, because I see it and I'm like, oh wow, like Omashu, is kind of like, there's a few places in China, like Xi'an, for example, but also like in Bactria, there were these cities that were major hubs of commerce, but also they had like these inventors and these figures of cross-cultural referencing, and they were almost like the Alexandria Library of their region. And that's what Omashu is in this series. And they like, like in the animated series, they put a lot of attention to like the delivery shoots, like of, I guess, the mailing system or whatever. And so it's just like sort of exemplifying like the thought process of messaging and the thought process of like what turns in transforming like a civic space into a place for fun and hijinks, but this kind of stuff was seen in history, and so, but now it also Omashu mirrors what Tibetans have in India now. So after the Tibetan diaspora, when they got pushed out by the Communist Party of China, they spread around the world, but mainly the Dalai Lama and his sort of closest retainers and the people that are closest from Lhasa and those parts of Tibet now live in Dharamsala, India. So you'll see some kind of like almost like Indian cultural influence of Omashu, the Netflix series, and I really, really appreciate that.
In this episode, we can see how the relationship between Bumi and Aang held after 100 years. You see the bitterness on Bumi's part every second, and Aang's so confused because this was just his friend. But I see where Bumi would have that type of feeling, while Aang was just away being a little boy. He had to go. I had issues. But there's another thing that I got from that show. There's just something about fighting because of hate, not for something you love, which is another thing that I've noticed. And a lot of times when we fight, it's because we want to prove something.
Yes.
Because we want to be right. But you gotta believe what I believe in. But when you become a bodhisattva, a peace seeker, you're fighting for something that you love. You love your community. You love peace. You love spreading that awareness. And I think that was there when Aang was trying to help Bumi get in touch with himself, even though Bumi was a little, in his head and stuff. So I enjoy that. Yeah. That was mostly what I got. And another one that I got is another quote that I saw somebody said was, "Memories can hold you back, but love will lead you to the dark." And that's truly how it could be sometimes. Sometimes we're stuck in the past. As Buddhists, we always know we gotta live in the present moment, because that suffering comes because we either think about the past too much or worrying about the future. So sometimes our memories, even though some may be beautiful, some are lessons, so you shouldn't forget them. You should forget about the feeling that it gave you, not be attached to that feeling, and kind of like just realize the lesson. And then, like I mentioned, see that love and use that light within that you just saw to kind of move you forward on that growth mindset.
Yes, indeed. What the series is showing us is that, like, there's good in everyone, there's evil in everyone. There's the potentials for good and evil in everyone. There's potential to act generously. There's the potential to act, jealously or greedily. There's the potential to act kindly. There's the potential to act cruelly, and so on and so on and so on. And so the show is definitely explicating that and showing us all these case studies worth of like what all this means, But Sky, I think so. Speaking of 4 and the rule of 4, I guess, which used to be like a symbol of balance, which 4 elements for Brahmaviharas. I'm kind of breaking the mold by saying there should be 5 Brahmaviharas. There should be 5 expressions of love.
Okay.
So again,
what are those?
Compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, nonviolence, and equanimity. Yeah.
Bam.
There you go. Boom. And I think that Avatar does this. I think that it brings the balance through these case studies through each episode. Even a Netflix series, I know that certain people don't like it, certain people, but you know what? Think about it through this lens. Maybe you'll see it in a different way, guys. But I don't know. Either way, you still have the animated series to look forward to, and you still have the movie that's coming. So,
That's sweet.
yeah. So, I mean, the creators care about this franchise, and I know that Netflix, they have a way of doing business. They have a way of, trying to make this appeal to a broader audience. But I like it. I like the Netflix series. What about you, Sky? What do you think so far of these 4 episodes that we discussed? Because I think that we're gonna pin for the rest of the episodes at another time.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed watching this. It's been so great. The great experience is watching this, taking notes, enjoying all the characters, all the lands, the different kingdoms. I personally like the water kingdom.
Like the water
and
tribe.
it's great. It's a lot of messages. Oh, bam! There you go. Yeah, I mean, so it's about healing. It's all about healing, about opening your heart, having a beginner's mind, so you can open up to other possibilities. You can grow, take that pain and learn your lessons. I enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We're gonna make some, so just like, subscribe, and we're gonna bend our way out of this one.
Yeah, guys. So if you have any more to add or any other comments, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you want more of this content, we will do another episode of this. So yeah, I've been Dharma Peace.
And I'm Dharma Sky.
All right, guys, we're flowing like water, popping smoke and steam. All right, guys, until next time, if you made it this far, salute to you.